Welcome, everybody. Just a few housekeeping tips before we get started. We're just going to ask everybody to keep their mics and their cameras off during the presentation. And then at the very end, we'll have you turn them all on so that you can say hello and wave, I guess. I don't know what else you do. And while Katharine and Anne-Sophie are talking, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat and we will be monitoring that. We'll have some great Q&A time at the very end. But I just want to welcome everybody here tonight. I am super excited. I have been looking forward to this since I saw it pop up on our grid. I was telling Anne-Sophie that her book crossed my desk really when I needed it the most. And it is the perfect book at this point in time because it just reminds us that reading can be fun, reading can be lovely, reading is, an escape, and it takes us, to worlds that we may not even have the opportunity to see anymore or ever see. I don't know that I'll ever be able to get to Paris, but because of Kisses and Croissants, I feel like I've been to Paris and it's just opened up this whole new world for me. So thank you so much, Anne-Sophie. But we also have a twofer tonight because we have Katharine McGee, who is going to be kind of the hostess with the mostest throughout this. And if y'all haven't had a chance to read American Royals, oh my God, trust me, between these two authors tonight, you're going to be set for a while with your book crack, as I like to call it, because you'll read one, you're going to need the next one. So thank you both ladies for joining us this evening. Thank you for these wonderful books that we're going to be talking so much about. And I guess that's it. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the show over to you. So thank you both for coming.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Yes, thank you for having us. So as Kathleen mentioned, I'm Katharine McGee, the author of the American Royal series, and I'm so honored and excited to be here with Anne-Sophie today celebrating the launch of Kisses and Croissants. I, like Kathleen, got to read this book last year. So Anne-Sophie and I have actually the same agent. So our mutual agent, approached me when the book was not still, I think, a final draft and asked me to read it. And it was so charming and so much fun and just very much the book that I needed to read last summer when I felt, like we were in the middle of the pandemic and I didn't know when we would ever get to travel again. And it was such a lovely escape to Paris. I actually studied French many years ago in high school and college. And at one point in time, I liked to think of myself as fluent. I don't think I was actually fluent, but I really did speak it very well. And now so much of my French is lost. It's one of those things with languages that when you don't practice it and exercise it, it just goes away. And so this book really reminded me of my love of France and Paris and Parisian baked goods and art and so many things. It's a love story, as so many stories are, but it's also a novel about a girl growing into her own and growing up and discovering what she wants to do with the rest of her life. So Anne-Sophie, just to kick things off, I was hoping you could, I'm assuming most of the people here know at least a little bit about the plot, but if you could tell us about Kisses and Croissants. This is your English language debut, which, by the way, is so impressive. The fact that you are now writing a book in not your native language when many of us are stumbling to write books in languages that we actually have spoken.
I stumble plenty, don't worry, in both languages.
But yeah, if you could just tell us a little bit about the genesis of the idea, how long you've been working on it, and sort of where it all came from.
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, I just want to thank the whole team at Anderson's Bookshop for having us. Very, very excited to be here tonight. And thank you, Katie. I love your books. I was so excited when you agreed to blog this one. I always think of your books as like, this is just the perfect concept. I just think, I remember hearing about the 1000th floor and thinking, oh, I wish I'd thought of that. And same with American Royals. And they're just so fun and just so wonderfully entertaining. So thank you so much for being here with me. So hi, everyone. I'm Anne-Sophie Johaneau. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the author of Kisses and Croissants. And Kisses and Croissants is about Mia. She's American. She's an aspiring ballet dancer, and she's accepted into a summer intensive dance program in Paris. So she's very excited to go to Paris for the summer, to dance ballet, obviously, but also because there's a legend in her family that her great grandmother was painted by Edgar Degas. So she's sort of hoping to be able to explore that while she's in Paris. And it just so turns out that as she arrives, she meets a very cute French boy named Louis, and he's very into that idea. So together they explore a lot of the city and this family mystery. And I thought maybe I'd actually read a few pages now, if that works, if that sounds good. I actually wanted to read the first scene, because Katie was asking me about how long I've been working on this. I actually started working on it in 2017, and it all started with that sort of meet cute, which is kind of a scene you have to have in a romance novel. So it's the scene where Mia has been in Paris for 2 days, and she's she's finished her. So just to give a bit of background, because it's chapter 5, she's just finished her first day of classes. And the school has 5 levels. And so basically she's been put in level 4. And at the end of the first day, she gets pulled over by this very strict and very famous instructor called Monsieur Dabrowski. And he pulls her aside and says, no, I'm putting you in level 5. You're really that good. But he says level 5 students only ever wear white leotards from Repetto, which is this famous ballet brand in France. And it's the evening, or it's the end of the day, and he says to her, turn up to school in white tomorrow or don't turn up at all. And she doesn't have a white leotard. So chapter 4 ends like this: ready, steady, and this is chapter 5. Go. The map on my phone says that it will take approximately 24 minutes to get to the Repetto store, which closes in half an hour. Now is probably a good time to start panicking. I type in a few more searches, sweat coating my palms. There's another location a few blocks away from school, but it's already closed for the day. I take one more look at the map, stumble down the main stairs, and rush to the exit. I jerk the front door open, but don't see the leather satchel on the steps until my foot slips over it. I catch myself just in time. Any ballerina worth a tutu has perfect balance. But the contents of the bag go flying. Oh, I cry out. Enfin, a boy shouts. Finally. The shack belongs to a guy about my age who's standing at the bottom of the steps, staring at his stuff, which has now gone everywhere. I do not have time for this. Oh, c'est pas toi, the boy mutters to himself when he looks up and sees me. It's not you. He's not very tall, probably average height, but that's the only average thing about him. He has a lanky frame, his crisp linen shirt billowing around him, thick, dark brown hair falling over one eye, and a mesmerizing dimple, even as he frowns. I stare at him blankly, so he switches to English. You're not, never mind. To be clear, my total state of confusion is not about his French. Okay, it's a little bit about the French, but it's mainly because he might be the most beautiful, no, cute, no, charming, no, sexy, no, gorgeous guy I have ever laid eyes on, ever. Yes, that's a bold statement. But he is. Enough to freeze me in space, enough to render me speechless, enough to make me forget what I'm supposed to be doing. British? The boy asks, coming up the school steps. He glances at the objects scattered on the ground, his keys, a phone charger, sunglasses, and I realize that I should stop staring and help him pick them up. I kneel down beside him and our hands almost touch as we both reach for his keys. American, I answer. My throat catches and it comes out in a raspy, barely audible, totally not attractive way. To top it off, I'm pretty sure that I've turned bright red, and I can't blame that solely on my talk with Monsieur Dabrowski and my race down the stairs. American, I correct myself. Mon français, pas très bon. I cringe. I must sound like a child. Surely the first rule of learning the language is that you should be able to say in proper French that you don't speak French properly. It's good enough, he responds in perfect English, his accent slick and not too pronounced. Most girls here still can't speak a word of French by the time they leave. The boy jams his belongings in a satchel and hangs it over his shoulder. As he stands up, he glances behind me to the front door, squinting to see through the glass. Je prends des leçons sur, I have an app, I say, attempting a cute smile as I stand up too. A few other things I should be taking lessons in. How to sound charmante on any occasion, and how to get to the other side of Paris while staying right here, smiling at this mysterious boy. Oh, and how to figure out if I'll see him again without sounding like a creep. So basically, learning charm, teleportation, and mind reading. French may be easier after all. I'm Louis, by the way, the boy says with a little wave. He pronounces it Louis, the French way, obviously. It's so unbearably cute that I wish he would say it one more time. I begin getting lost in his smile for a second. Everything about my mad dash to Repetto comes crashing back. I'm late. I'm so super mega late. Still, I can't move. Fun fact about this trip, it was absolutely, definitely, 100% designed to make people fall in love. With its lush plants and flower pots hanging from windowsills, the old-fashioned lampposts, the knots of violin coming from a nearby apartment, and the stacks of bicycles with wire baskets. It's almost too romantic. Then I should let you go. I'm waiting for a friend, Louis explains. He's waiting for a girl, of course, le sigh. I think everyone's gone, I say. I didn't come across anyone on my way out. I should probably call. He trails off, looking a little sad. Okay, then. I edge down the stairs. He ignores his phone though, and keeps staring at me. I can't walk away from him. That would be extremely rude. But I also can't break my promise to Monsieur Dabrowski. I have to get this letter or I won't be allowed back tomorrow. My instructor, he's, well, let's just say that my life is pretty much over if I don't make it to the shop in time. This puts a smile back on Louis' face, and I stop wondering why I even told him all of that. It's not like he asked. A true ballet emergency, he replies. You go into the Repetto on Rue de la Paix, right? He follows me down the steps and poses in front of a Vespa that I've only just noticed. I nod. Nodding is so great. It's the same in every language. Louis starts undoing a lock that holds up 2 helmets in place. It looks like my evening just freed up. He offers me one of them with a smile. My arms suddenly feel like noodles. No way he's suggesting what I think he's suggesting. Louis puts on his helmet, straddles the scooter, and kicks it into gear. Are you coming? I don't have much time. I bite my lip. Well played, Paris. Well played. That's it. Well, the chapter continues, but I will stop here.
That's such a fun meet cute. And I had forgotten the way that you interplay the languages so well, like Losai and those types of things. That's all so fun and so well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to hear what your process was like writing this book in English. Did you, I mean, this might be a silly question, but is your brain thinking in English the whole time? Are you ever thinking in French and then translating it as you write? Is it kind of half and half? And how do you outline? Are you more of an outliner, or are you kind of writing as you go?
So I've written in English for a really long time now, and this wasn't actually the first book that I wrote in English. So I've been in the US for 10 years. Before that, I was in Australia. Before that, I was in Amsterdam. So I've been living in English for most of my adult life, honestly. And I speak English at home. So, I mean, with my husband, not with my family. But anyway, so I mostly think in English when I write. I think typically if I write in English, I think in English. If I write in French, I think in French. Obviously, this book has a lot of French in it. So so that was a little bit, it was a little tricky to find the right balance of having enough French, having enough French in the book that to give it really that, that vibe that she is there, she is in Paris, but not too much that it would be alienating to to an American audience or to an English-speaking audience. I had a pretty tight outline for this book, which actually it made life easy. I'll say, like, it made life easier to just really think about how it's starting. I worked on the first 7 or 8 chapters for quite some time, and then sort of plotted out and the rest of the book. But even though, I mean, even as I had a pretty detailed outline, I still found a lot of surprises along the way, and a lot changed along the way as well, especially the ending. I don't want to spoil anything, but I ended up rewriting like the last, I think, 7 chapters, like late in the process. So it's always a fun discovery, even if you outline quite in quite a bit of detail, I think.
Outlines. I don't know how people can approach a book without knowing at least the broad strokes of where it's going and where they're taking the characters. But I do know authors who do that, who just sit down and they say, I don't know what's going to happen to her for the next 2/3, but something's going to happen. I definitely need at least a little bit of a plan, but I agree that things go off kilter at times. There have been a few comments about what a good reader you are, and I feel like your accent adds actually so much to the reading of the book. I wish you could be the audiobook narrator. Did you get to have anything to do with that? I'm guessing not. I don't get anything to do with mine, but I
actually did. It was kind of funny. At the very beginning, when I was working on this book, one of our mutual agents kind of said, "Oh, Anne-Sophie, I think you should read the audiobook." And I had never thought about it. And I know that I read a little bit about what the process is like, because, like most things, it sounds kind of fun to do. And then I've heard of authors who say, yeah, you spend 4 days in a studio. And if you're not like a trained voice actor, it's actually very challenging. I didn't ask and I wasn't offered, but I did. I was sent a few samples from 5 different narrators, and one really stood out to me. And I was lucky that I was given the choice.
That's fantastic. And what about the cover? The cover is so fun, and of course, it's got the iconic Vespa on it.
Yep.
I actually wore pink to match your cover. So.
Thank you, and that's lovely. So I've actually been told that you and I have the same cover designer. So the illustrator, Carolina Mellis, I hope I'm saying this correctly, who designed the Vespa, and it's beautiful. I'm sure you noticed the shadow of the Eiffel Tower. I believe this is the same person who designed your Majesty and American Royals, the face, which I love so much. It was one of my covers where I was like, I want what she has. And then the rest of the design was done by Casey Moses. So yeah, it's gorgeous. It's like, and I don't know that it shows really well on screen, but it's such a gorgeous, like peachy pink that just stands out so much. It's beautiful. I'm very lucky.
It's a very happy pink for a very happy book that, like I said,
exactly,
we all needed right now.
Exactly.
There's so many fun things about Paris, and I feel like Paris is a character in the book in and of itself. Was it hard for you to write Paris as, from the point of view of a character who's an American discovering Paris for the first time, or kind of how did you approach just setting the scene through all of those different moments in the book?
Yeah, it was a little bit challenging because I grew up 40 minutes outside of Paris. I actually described the village where I grew up in the book. Mia and Louis go there at some point. And there was a bit of I've always been like in awe of the city, and obviously I've been like dozens and dozens of times, but it was kind of trying to put myself in the shoes of an American, a younger girl who's never been there. And what I used my own experiences as I moved out of France and to Amsterdam when I was 21. So, slightly different circumstances, but similar enough. And also I was really lucky. I mean, I did a lot of research, but I was also really lucky that one of the agents and my wonderful editor, Wendy Lulia, I think I saw her name pop up, are huge Francophiles, huge lovers of Paris. So they really helped me think about what are some aspects of Paris and some locations that are very, very exciting to potentially a young American audience. And actually, a little funny story about that is, I'm sure you've heard of the bridge with all the locks, where lovers go and attach locks.
I put that in one of my books too. Actually,
Did you?
It's in the 1,000th Floor series, so we're very much on the same page about
on the same page. But I said to them, it's such a romantic spot, but over the years, so many people have attached locks that the poor bridge has actually been the structure has been struggling so much. And I said, well, I don't want to, this is destroying the bridge. I don't want to put that in. So instead of that, well, I don't want to spoil it, but there's something to do with the lock, but they don't attach it to the bridge. And I try to play a few things like that. It's like what is really iconic Paris, but in a way that's sort of modern, and that it would, works for my French heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you spoke about research. How did you approach all of the dancing scenes? Because the ballet and all of, I mean, even just the rush to go get a Repetto leotard, it all struck me as very authentic. Do you have a dance background, or was this just the result of you learning a good deal about ballet?
It was the result of learning a lot about ballet. I bought several books. I spent a lot of time on YouTube. Like, there's so many ballet dancers on YouTube, and I'm sure on TikTok now as well. It wasn't as big in 2017 when I started working on this. And I just really, just spend a lot of time deconstructing moves. I have, like I said, I have a great book on ballet that. So it's funny because the story about the white leotard, I wanted that meet cute, like outside of the school. And I read something about how in some schools, the higher levels get to wear a special attire so that they distinguish from the rest of the levels, so that, people know if the girls are in black or in white, then it means that they're top end. And I thought, oh, wow, this was the genesis for that scene where she is, it's amazing for her that suddenly she's told, no, you're so good, we're putting you in level 5. But if you don't have the right clothes, don't even try and come, and then come back tomorrow. So lots and lots of research on ballet. I also actually did quite a lot of research on Paris, because I really wanted to think about what are some really fun locations that they could go on dates. Like just some places that I really love. I personally really like street art, so I sort of try to include that in the story. I don't want to spoil anything, so I will say no more about that. I also actually went to Paris in 2017 when there was a huge exhibition on Degas at the Musée d'Orsay, which plays, a big part in the story. So yeah, and then I had all the art research to do as well on like figuring out the different paintings that they would see and what they, which ones they were, the real ones, which ones they were, and the fictional one that I won't talk about too much, but what it would look like.
I loved the painting, side plot line. I thought that was a lot of fun, and
Thank you.
About Mia discovering her family roots and engaging with that. 2017 is also the last time that I was in Paris. I was actually there for New Year's, and thinking about that makes me so sad. I hope that we'll be able to go back soon. That would be so.
We will.
It also made me very hungry for a lot of mainly croissants, and also cheese and everything else delicious that the French cook, pastries, eclairs, all of it. Can we talk about the croissants? I actually really appreciated that you show the dancers eating them and having largely healthy relationships with their bodies. I think I can't remember where in the book, there's one point where they talk about how many calories they're burning dancing and how they deserve the croissants. That I really appreciated that. Was that, what was kind of your thinking as you put all of that into the book?
Well, there were a few things. So first, she's in France. If she doesn't eat a lot of food and a lot of pastries, she's not really there. It was a way of making it authentic, obviously. But also, when I was doing research on the story, when I was sort of playing, like there was the ballet element, the Degas element, the being in Paris element. I did a lot of research on what other books there were out there that have ballet stories. And what I found is a lot of stories about girls, sort of rivalries between girls, sometimes mean girl attitudes. I found a lot of stories. I found a lot of ballet stories have side plots of like eating disorders. And I know this is true to life. And I know this is just, those are important stories as well. But I think I knew that I wanted the story to be so happy and upbeat and just generally a breath of fresh air. And I was thinking about all these things, those stereotypes about ballet, and I thought, how can I spin them? How can I make Mia is so dedicated and so passionate about her dream. I wanted her dream to be just pure and beautiful. Even I know it's not 100% realistic, but I wanted this story to be like that. So I think there was I like the idea of just showing what athletes ballet dancers are, because when I did all this research, especially when I watched all these YouTube videos that I was talking about earlier, it just really blew my mind that I always thought of them as artists, but I realized, oh no, you're like a football player plus an artist on top of it, and you have to look after your body so well to be able to perform and be a dancer. So it was important to me that that they just eat well and enjoy food and enjoy looking after their bodies. And yeah, that scene that you're talking about is when I think that's the one you're talking about, is when they do their costume fittings, and the costume designer says, well, you better not lose any weight, because now that it's fitted to your size. And Mia goes, yeah, I'm eating way too many croissants for that, don't worry. It's not going to happen.
I know. I get this question a lot, that people always want to know what are the most fun scenes to write. And often people also ask me if I have a favorite character, but usually I tend to find that the romantic scenes are the ones everyone expects me to talk about. But actually, in your book, I feel like some of my favorite scenes were between Mia and Audrey, and I really love the friendship story that you built there. But what are your favorite scenes? And then I'd love it if you would talk a little bit about Audrey, because I feel like it kind of goes back to what you're saying about rivalry. She starts as the sort of the mean girl, but obviously there's a great transformation over the course of the book.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I love the romantic scenes. I think I had the most fun, and that's why I read, this first scene that I wrote and that I just read with the meet cute. I think all the moments where Mia and Louis are talking or going around the city, to me it felt just so natural, and I love a little bit of banter. I love writing dialogue, so for me that was really fun. It's so funny because I'll admit that in all the early reviews of the book, a lot of people talk about that story between Mia and Audrey, which has changed a lot with every draft. And it really struck a chord, I guess, with some readers. And I guess I didn't expect that. I think it was, again, exactly what you were saying about they started off as like rivals, and it was, how can I spin this, and how can I make this about a positive story for girls? I think, and I know your stories are quite feminine as well, and I'd love to hear what you think about that. But for me, I feel a bit of a responsibility if I'm going to write specifically for a young girl audience. I want stories that show amazing friendships and girls who love their bodies, and just showing how it can be such a positive experience to be going through, to be 17. What about you? How do you feel about this?
No, I totally agree. And I think it was very powerful that you did that, especially through the lens of ballet, which is so typically viewed as a competition. And I think of all the ballet movies like Center Stage that I used to watch, and how everything is about, there's one role and everyone is in competition for it, and you can't be friends with the other girls because you're just going to have to end up trying to beat them out for this coveted position. And I feel like you did such a good job. You neatly turned that on its head in a way that I won't spoil, but you made it work. And I love watching your two characters uplift each other as the book goes on. I definitely agree with you that, writing for young people, for teens and young women, comes with a degree of responsibility. And I always try to, characters certainly they're not perfect, because they're people and they're flawed and they make mistakes and they do bad things. And one of the things that I always find so amusing is I have a character named Daphne who's sort of my villain, and people are always like, I just hate Daphne and I wish she wasn't in the book. And I go, well, there would be no story without her. Like there has to be.
We need Daphne.
All perfect people doing all perfect things. That is not going to be an interesting book to read. You got to have somebody who's like stirring the pot a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do think that, just because my characters do something doesn't mean that I necessarily endorse that behavior. But that said, I really do try to show that my characters, when they do the right thing or when they are true to themselves, that ends up ultimately being an action that is rewarded for them. And I love to show them kind of standing up to people who tell them that they can't do things, to people in positions of power, and coming into their own power. Majesty very much is a book about, a young woman who's growing into her position. And I feel like there's a lot of that in Kisses and Croissants. She starts the book 17. We we end the book later after after Mia having gone through so much and grown so much. And it is a lot of fun to watch her. You know, it's not just a summer fling in Paris story. There's so much more to it, which I think is really really special. So
Thank
that
you.
a lot of fun. I feel like writing for YA is, it's also, as we've talked about multiple times, that your book is so joyful, and I feel like young adult fiction is overall a very joyful space to write in and to engage in. I feel like all the other authors that I know are so wonderful, and I don't know if I could say the same about adult books. You know, some of them, they're not always as hopeful and optimistic. I think that's what, to me, ends up characterizing YA, is that there's always an underlying theme of hope, and that if people are generally good and do the right thing, that the world can improve and that we can do things to change the world for the better. And I just always love that message. I think that optimistic books are good to have and good to read. And like I said, we all really need them right now.
Yeah. Well, and you did it so very well in the American Royals series, where you have a woman in a position of power. I mean, essentially, this is what the story is. I mean, and it's difficult for them, and it's not handed on a platter, and there are many challenges along Beatrice's way. But I love that showing, like how you showed basically like this young woman who's like has a lot of pressure put on her shoulders so suddenly, but she more than rises up to the challenge.
Oh yes, no, I mean, I have a woman as Queen of America, and it's very honestly, when I started writing this book, I did not think that we would still be in a world where we had never had a woman as head of state in America. But it is still a revolutionary concept, to my dismay. But you know, at least we've got it in books for sure.
Exactly. At least we have that.
Is there anything about that publishing this book that has surprised you, or you know, I know I too had a book come out in the pandemic. I know this is really hard. It would be way more fun if we were doing this in person, but as you said, you've gotten to engage with readers, you know, virtually from all over. We obviously have people here tonight that could not be here if we were at Anderson's. But yeah, what has surprised you about the writing or the publishing process for this book, and then particularly just in this particular year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways, I don't have a lot of things to compare it to. Like, I know, for example, you and I have the same publicist, Emma. I'm not sure she's here, but if you are, hi, Emma. And I remember seeing that amazing event you did. I think it was for American Royals at La Durée in New York. I believe so. I remember seeing.
It was a tea. It was so much fun. We got to go to tea. I miss that. Oh my God.
I know. And I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking, I want that for my launch event. I want exactly that. And you know, it was a little sad. I think I'm thankful that I've had a year to get used to the idea that we'd probably still be in this current situation. I think by fall last year, I felt like I knew that, you know, it would be what it is. So I mean, you know, that it's hard for me to say like what has been different with the publishing process, I guess, due to the pandemic. I know I didn't get printed advanced reader copies. I mean, you know that, but for anyone who doesn't know, often publishers will print like 9 months in advance, like rough copies, I guess, like on lower quality paper of the book, so it can be sent around to journalists and reviewers and librarians and bookstores. And so that didn't happen. So the first time I held this book was like 2 weeks ago. And I was basically waiting by the door for the mailman, you know, every single day, waiting to see if the box would arrive. But what's been most surprising to me is the timeline of things. I was, you know, quite surprised that there were reviews coming out about the book. I want to say starting August last year. And it was very jarring to me because I had this date of April 6, 2021 ingrained in my brain. And that was when my book was supposed to come out. And so months early, seeing people already talking about it on social media or writing reviews online was very special. And also a little bit like, oh, okay, we're starting now.
Book publishing is one of the few jobs where you do something and then you don't get praise, or you don't get to share it with anybody for sometimes almost a year. It's very strange. Imagine if, you know, a basketball player shot a really good shot, and then like a year later people clapped for it. It's
I
this,
know.
it can be so funny and jarring, like you said, because when you're in the middle of another book, then your last book comes out, and sometimes you literally are thinking like, I forgot what can I mention that scene, or did we cut it at the end? Like,
Oh, totally. I don't know if you.
I'm not even sure. I definitely have scenes like that where I'm like, this is from the airplane scene. Oh wait, no, that's gone.
No, that's gone. It's so funny. When I was reading, I stumbled on a sentence because I know that sentence used to be phrased differently for many, many drafts. And that original version is still ingrained in my brain. And even though I rehearsed the reading, I still like said it out loud the way it wasn't written in the book. But it's so true what you're saying, because the book sold in March 2019. And for various reasons, partly because the title changed multiple times, it wasn't announced officially until February 2020, I think. And it's kind of funny when you finally put it out there and everyone's like, congratulations. And it's amazing, but it's also like, it's really old news, I mean, it's always exciting news for sure, but it was kind of funny from that point of view.
So are you working on something new right now, correct? Can you tell us?
I am. I handed in revisions on my next book at like 2 a.m. on launch day, like yesterday.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm sure I know it's happened to a lot of my author friends, so I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but sometimes the timing of things just works out in a way that, I just really wanted for it to be, to be done before Kisses came out, so I could switch my brain back to Kisses, because exactly like you said, sometimes I'm like, I forget what's in this book because I've written a lot of things since I finished it, including a whole other novel. And anyway, so yes, I don't know how much I can say about it yet. It's a standalone. So it's another YA novel. It's also a romance. It's supposed to come out in fall 2022, and it's about food. So if you think there's a lot of food in Kisses and Croissants, if you think there are a lot of croissants, there are way more. There's a lot of food.
Cooking class as your event instead of a tea. We can.
Oh, that's
virtually or something. But I think we'll be able to do it in person by then.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, let's hope that in fall 2022 we can have live events again.
Oh yeah, no, I only said that because I did a cooking class through Zoom with my sister a couple of weeks ago. We cooked some eggplant parmesan and it was really fun.
Yeah, like, that sounds fun. What about you? I want to know what you're working on next.
I know. So I'm don't know yet whether there will be a third American Royals book, but I'm still definitely hoping that it could happen. And so in the meantime, I'm working on something that is very new for me. And it's still tonally similar to my other books in the sense that it follows multiple characters. Right now it's 3 women who were all friends in high school and are now in their late 20s, early 30s. So it's actually an adult project. And the 4th friend, who was sort of the queen bee who connected them all, has been out of town for this whole time and moves back to town, and then things start to happen, just drama ensues once she's back in the group. So it's a lot of fun. It is still new, early stages. And then, as you saw before everyone else joined the Zoom, I have a 6-month-old little boy who's our first, which is a lot of fun and which has been a real challenge to get work done. I definitely had not budgeted for how hard it would be both to work while pregnant. I feel like that, I don't know, probably because back when I worked in an office, I actually used to work in book publishing as an editor. I had so many colleagues who got pregnant and I saw them come in every day. So I kind of just thought that you could still live your life, but also be pregnant. But it is exhausting. Like I am so impressed by every mom who has done any work at all while pregnant. I was like needed a nap every single day and a lot of chocolate, and still was writing at probably 60% of my usual capacity. And then of course now I have the baby and he's a lot of work, and so it's been slower going. And I know everyone's had it be slower going this year. It's been a very distracting year. It's none of us are writing at or really operating at our normal capacity, but
that's very true. I think it is different for writers and for people who work for themselves, because you're on your own. You know, no one is, I see my husband is in meetings all day long and it's very exhausting in its own way, but someone's expecting him at 9 and then at 10 and then at 11 and then he just gets rolling. And I think when you're a writer, you spend so much of your time just in your own thoughts and by yourself. And I know I have a lot of writer friends that I hang out with, like virtually or, you know, in real life before. And I'm sure you probably do, and I expect you do as well, but I think it is being with your own thoughts and having to motivate yourself every single day to keep going when there are distractions. I think it is harder when you don't have like that office job.
So different because you can set your own hours, you can give yourself a day off, and nobody's there to tell you that you shouldn't have a day off. You can just, then you have to make up the time somewhere else. And it often feels to me like I'm a student with a dissertation that's just looming 3 months in the future, and you never know when you're going to turn it in.
Yeah, their exams, like it's a life of like, unless like papers being due.
I know, and I'm often late for them, so.
Well, we try our best.
We try our best, our poor editors and publicists. Well, I know that Kathleen at Anderson's wanted to open it up to questions from the audience. So I assume people probably can just drop them in the chat box, but I'll let you explain, Kathleen.
Yeah, exactly. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll bring them up. But I just want to say thank you both so much. I was chuckling when you were doing the reading Anne-Sophie, not because of what you were reading, but I didn't realize how much of your story had actually infiltrated my daily life and has stayed with me until you read the part where she said "Lasai," because I have been using that
I love it.
since I've read the book, and I didn't realize that I had been using it. And now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, look at that. So
I love hearing that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So I was chuckling. I'm glad my microphone was off. We did have one question that popped up. The part about the dance really resonated with a lot of people. We did have one person that wants to know if you're going to start taking ballet now.
Ooh.
Had all your research.
So no is the short answer. I did take some classes when I was researching the book. I attended a ballet class while I was in Paris. Not really. I posted a video of myself on Instagram a couple of days ago, just shimmying in front of my book. And I said, this is the extent of my dance moves. And I think it's for the best. I will stick to writing.
Well, you do so good at writing. So really, you know, it's don't be a talent hog. I mean, there we go. That's really it. I did want to harken back to something that Katharine, you talked about, that you mentioned about feeling the responsibility when writing for teens. And I think that's one thing that I love most about these books, about the American Royals, about Kisses and Croissants, is that it's a book that I know I can give with confidence, right? That this has got such an uplifting, Katharine, you used the word joyful, all of these stories, just make us feel good and remind us about the good that's still out there in the world, and what an important message that we have. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do want to go off track a little bit. So Katharine, who do I need to talk to make sure that there's a third American Royals?
Yes, let's get one.
I know. And I have so many thoughts about what would happen in later books. In particular, Anne-Sophie will really appreciate this, but I would like to see some foreign royals, because as you know, kind of the underlying premise of American Royals is, what if America had a royal family? And just sort of loosely going on a basic kind of 8th grade history track, if you assume that later revolutions in world history, like the French Revolution, were largely inspired by the American Revolution, which historians can debate, but I'm going with it. Then you live in a modern world where, like, we're on Louis the 23rd, and France still has a monarchy, and so I super want to get into the French, like, current monarchs and go to Versailles in the present day, but it's still a functioning palace. I feel like that's a scene that I'm dying to write.
It's so funny you say that, because when I was reading American Royals, my first idea was, can I write the same story, but like with French royals? Like, can I, like it just really inspired me. I just thought, I really wish we still had a royal family in France.
I'm seeing a collaboration in your future.
I know, like side story about the French royals. I think
yes. Like I want
sign
this.
Me up. Sign me
Yeah,
up.
I want this book now, you guys. I want this book now. So we do have a few questions. So Beth says congratulations, but she'd also like to know what would be the first place that you would like to visit if you could get back to Paris?
So I mean, technically I can get to Paris. Well, actually,
that was my mistake. She did say when you get back to Paris.
So funny story. I became an American citizen about 3 weeks ago. And as part of the process, I had to give up my green card, and I have to apply for an American passport now. And I can't leave the country until I get my American passport, but because I've been so busy with book 2 and book launch. So right now I have my French passport, but because I'm an American citizen now, I can't re-enter the country without an American passport. All of this to say that I think I will go to France as soon as it's possible, because I actually haven't seen my family for 3 years at this point, for various reasons. So I think I would love to go to Paris. I mean, right now the country has entered another lockdown, like a sort of simplified lockdown. So it's very complicated, but I'm hoping to get there this summer, and I will definitely go to Paris and and other parts of France.
And everybody is healthy and safe though in your family.
Yes.
Okay,
It's just the pandemic is doing its pandemic job.
Right. It's
Let's
doing
put it
its
this way.
thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody would like to know how many rejections you have received for your book. And I think that's an interesting question for both of you.
For sure. For this one, well, let's just say, first of all, as a writer, you get rejected every day, constantly. I feel like you're a professional writer where you can just like look forward to those rejections because you're making progress towards an acceptance. I think because I do a few different types of writing, and you get rejected all day long. But even for things to do throughout the publishing process, sometimes you ask for things and it just doesn't happen, or you hope for things and it just doesn't work out. I wrote a novel before that was rejected by, and I remember the number, by 19 editors, which was, it's a challenging thing to go through. I think most authors I know have gone through this process. So it's just, part and parcel of being an author. This book, we got very, very lucky. I think I remember very clearly that we sent it out. I think the first emails went out on a Friday at like 2 p.m. or something, and by 5 we had an editor saying, I'm reading it on the train home, like stay tuned on Monday. And then this Monday rolled around, and it was just emails like that, constant, like those first few days of a lot of excitement for the book. We did have a few editors passing, but I think once you get that first, like when you're starting to see that there's interest, you don't care about the rejections anymore. You're like, okay, you go I'll focus on the yeses. And I know this wasn't the question, but I'm extremely lucky that I had 2 dream editors in mind, and I was very lucky that one of them snapped it up as fast as she could. Wendy, hi. What about you, Katharine?
So my story is slightly different because, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I actually used to work in book publishing. So I effectively worked at an agency supporting an agent. And so instead of writing a book and submitting it to a bunch of publishers, I actually was able to, a very cowardly move of me, I wrote about, I think it was 3 chapters of American Royals and left it on his desk before he arrived at work. And so it was just waiting there for him. And then he came out to my desk later and said, okay, what is this? And we should talk about it because it sounds like you want to write. I was actually not the first assistant of his to leave and become a writer. So I think he was obviously very happy with me, but there was a little bit of eye roll of, okay, I kind of have to hire another assistant. Like, why do my assistants keep leaving to become authors? But that was very lucky of me. That said, that was actually rejected the first time. So my former boss read the pages. They were very much different tonally in the original incarnation of American Royals, it was actually much more of a political thriller, which was very wrong for me. I often tell this story as an example of why everyone should write the type of story that they love to read, or something that feels organic to them. That was the year that House of Cards had just come out on Netflix, and I was watching it and enjoyed it and felt very heavily influenced by that kind of gritty Kevin Spacey feel. And so this version of American Royals had actually some male POVs. It had, like, the whole plot line was that the royals were dying off and someone was assassinating them and trying to figure out who was killing them and why, which was just, like I said, I don't really read political thrillers. They're not the types of stories that I gravitate towards. And so it wasn't a good fit. And so my former boss read the pages, and he said, I'm, like, interested in the fact that you want to write, and you should find something that you want to write, and we should talk about it, but this is not it. And so I set those chapters aside, worked on the project that became The 1,000th Floor. And then when I was working on The 1,000th Floor, book 3, and he is now my agent, I brought it back up and I said, remember American Royals? I'm going to bring that back. And he was just totally groaned. And he said, are you kidding? That was so bad. You can't write that. It didn't make any sense. And so I had to really sell him on the fact that it was sort of the hook and the way into the world that I was keeping, but I was turning it into a coming of age teenage love story and taking out all the assassination stuff. So
I love that.
And the right call. Like, don't write things that aren't the type of stories that you love, because everyone should write the book that they want to read.
Yeah,
But
I
also,
can't imagine. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's so interesting to me because you clearly had a great idea, but you just hadn't quite worked out how to make it happen yet. And I think sometimes it's so fascinating to me. Sometimes it just takes drafts and drafts and drafts to just finally turn an idea around until you just enter it from the right place, I think.
And I can't imagine American Royals being anything other than what it is. So that's an interesting story. So Anne-Sophie, somebody would like to know if there was a real life Louis in your teenage life.
No. I wrote Louis. I wrote Louis very much as the fantasy French boyfriend that I never had. And there was no Louis, although Louis is named after my nephew Louis, obviously, who was born while I was working on this draft. And I emailed my editor and I said, my nephew is just born. I won't say his former name, but Louis had a different name for a really long time. And I was like, can I just change the name? Do you mind? And then I told my brother, and I said, don't get too excited, because sometimes names change late in the process for various reasons. But I said, I'm making him a Louis for now, and we'll see what happens. And it stuck. There were no dream French boyfriends in my teen years, but I was very lucky that I won't go too much into my own personal life, although I see some of my friends' names come up, so they know the story. But I moved to Amsterdam when I was 21. And then when I was 23, I met my dream Australian boyfriend who became my husband. So it worked out very well.
You don't need a Louis. You've got perfect.
I have Scott.
Perfect. Well, Ashley, who was in Paris, she said the last time in 2018, was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the places that we see in the book. And I was wondering if you had a favorite place that you wrote about.
Yes. I don't know that I don't have one. I have many. I think this was, like I said earlier, I grew up just outside Paris. I love it so much. For me, it is the most beautiful city in the world. I love many cities, but there's something about this one that just, every time I just wander the streets, it just makes me, I just cannot believe how beautiful it is. So I'm a museum buff. So it was very fun to write about all the Degas mystery, because Mia ends up at a lot of different museums, including the Musée d'Orsay, which is such a special place for anyone who hasn't been. It's a former train station. So it's just this gigantic hall with amazing windows and those huge clocks. And it's just the space itself is beautiful. So that was a really fun place to write about. I wrote about the Mur des Je t'aime. I don't know, like a very special scene happens there. Don't want to spoil anything, but it's basically a tiled wall in Montmartre that has basically I Love You written every single language. Well, not every single, but like many, many different languages. It's just a very cute, romantic place in Montmartre on like the most gorgeous street. And there's like a carousel nearby. It's like, it's one of these places for me anyway, that I walk around and I think, how is this real? This looks like a movie set. What else? Of course, I'm stumped now. Oh, I wrote about there's a very cool piece of street art in a cute little alley near Canal Saint-Martin. And it's like you climb, of course, now I can't exactly picture it, but I think you climb a few steps. And it's a girl who has like she sort of has an afro, but it's made up of little umbrellas of all kinds of colors. And Mia notices it in the book because it's just like this piece of art that you just, turn a corner and it's just there on the side of a building. What else? They go to a lot of like fun cafes and restaurants. And as I said before, eat a lot of pastries. all of these are favorites of mine too.
Nice. Yeah. Like Catherine, I very much needed that, kind of delivery service from the French pastry shop that is not in my town, but I really wanted one to be in my town. So thank you for that. And now I'm super excited to know that there's going to be even more food coming.
A lot more food.
A lot more food. Great. Well, I guess it's better to read about it than it is to eat it. That's
well, I mean, you can do both. I've loved seeing. There are a lot of pictures right now on Instagram of the book with croissants next to it. So I think you can definitely eat some of the croissants while reading Kisses and Croissants.
Okay. That's what I'll tell myself. Anne-Sophie said it was okay.
It's okay.
What your favorite croissant flavor is? Personally, I get chocolate every time, but my husband always gets almond.
I'm very sorry to tell you that those are not croissants.
Are you serious? I shouldn't have said that.
I'm sorry. I'm a total French snob. There is only one croissant. It is the croissant. The other, I think you're talking about a pain au chocolat. I'm just teasing you. I know. Okay. I actually love pain au chocolat. Anything with chocolate works for me, Yeah. So I'm not very picky. But I think when you eat like a really good croissant, I think they're actually really hard to make because they need a lot of butter to be really tasty. You need a lot of butter and you need a lot of layers. And I actually don't know how to make one, but I read up on it at some point. And I thought, oh, that sounds really hard for something that's so simple. But yeah, chocolate is my favorite.
Yeah, I got to go with the chocolate. I love Nicole's reaction. She said, I'm here for the croissant drama. Who knew?
Sorry,
Who knew that was going to be the
I know. The second I said it, I was like, they're not truly croissants. That's just what Americans call them. Oh no.
Oh, well, at least now we'll know we don't insult any French bakers by calling pain au chocolat a croissant. So there we go.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, it was kind of funny with my editors where sometimes they would come back with questions and I'd be like, no, this has to be this way. This is the French way. And I could almost feel them, like roll their eyes across the screen. They're like, come on, Anne-Sophie, who cares? This is for an American audience. And I thought, I care.
Exactly. We care too. We want to know that we're doing the right thing. Exactly. Oh, that's funny. Well, we are, I feel like we could be here all night talking. This has just been such a wonderful, wonderful evening. And I feel like we're all just a bunch of friends getting together to talk about these books that made us happy. And, it's just been a wonderful way to spend the evening. But unfortunately, I think we all have things to do other than sit here and talk all night. So what I would like to do is everybody, if you feel comfortable, turn your cameras on so that we can all see each other and say, hey. And as you do that, again, Anne-Sophie, thank you so much for this story. It has, I described it to somebody earlier today that it's that kind of book that makes you feel as if you've just been enveloped in your comfy sweater or have just been given this big hug from somebody that you haven't seen in forever and a day. And really, what do we need more in the world besides croissants right now are hugs from our loved ones. And that's the feeling that you give through this story. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Katharine, thank you so much for American Royals. Again, I'm such a nerd girl, fangirl over that series. And you both have given us books that, like I said, I know I can trust this story when I give it to when I put it in somebody's hands. I know that I'm going to be giving them a book that makes them feel good, that's going to make them, feel like they've really have lost themselves in a story. And that's why we're readers, right? One of the big reasons why we're readers. So thank you both very much. And you guys, all of you that came tonight, thank you all so much for being here, because without any of you, Anne-Sophie wouldn't be here, Katharine wouldn't be here, Andersons wouldn't be here. You guys are what keeps that wheel turning. So thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you. I also just want to say I'm seeing messages. Well, first of all, actually, let me start like this. I really want to thank you, Kathleen and Anderson's Bookshop, for having me. Really appreciate you hosting this event. It's my first book launch, so it means a lot to me. So thank you. And I really want to thank Katharine as well for taking the time and being so kind with all her wonderful questions and taking my little croissant down with so much grace. Thank you. I also want to say that I saw some messages pop up. I can't really see them. I've seen some names I recognize, but I just want to thank you so much to everyone for coming. I know you're going to turn on your cameras in a second, but just wanted to say that I may have missed some messages, but I really appreciate them.
Yeah, I think everybody's just been super excited. A lot of congratulations. A lot of people very excited to see this book in the world finally. And we just can't wait to just start putting it in people's hands. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. All
Congratulations,
right.
Anne-Sophie, and thank you again, Kathleen, for hosting
Oh
us.
my gosh, my absolute pleasure. This was just, like I said, I wish we could just go all night. This has just been such a wonderful, wonderful evening. So thank you, Katharine. Thank you, Anne-Sophie. And again, thank you, all of you, for coming this evening. And if you haven't had a chance to grab Kisses and Croissants, trust me, do yourself a favor, make time for this book, curl up, disconnect. You will be happy that you did. And then when you're done with that, go and read American Royals for the exact same reason, because these are just stories that just make you smile and make you want to just spread that joy that the books give you. You want to bring that out into the world when you're done with these stories. So thank you both so much. And thank all of you. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your evening. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Congratulations again, Anne-Sophie.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye,
Nice
everyone.
to meet you
Thank you
all.
for coming.
Bye.